Gas prices so high they got you down. Have you been considering getting yourself a cheap EV beater with a heater? So I know just a couple videos ago, I did a video on no more new cars. I don't want anything I can't work on. Blah, blah, blah. You remember that? Well, what's the difference with this here? I see that Volt in the background. I see you cruising that around in some of your other videos. You know what's special about this car? It's paid off. Yeah, let's go. All right, it's raining. It's fantastic. Let's roll. No keys, push to start. Just like that. Before I hang the camera up here, as you can see, we're on a full charge. I've got an estimated 52 miles of range. Here's our energy usage. We haven't used anything yet, and that's kind of how we're sitting at the moment. Normally, I'm trying to squeeze every ounce of distance I can out of this car because I'm cheap and I only charge it like every other day. So this isn't bad. Today we're going to torture the shit out of this thing. I'm going to run it in sport mode with the heater on, up a hill in a windy road, and see how not far we can go. And this should literally be my worst run ever on a full charge, and we'll see how crappy it is. We're reversing. Sport mode, engage.
Make it so. Sir?
Down.
Do it.
This could be dangerous, folks. Never done this. Let's see. Let's turn the seat heater on. Let's turn this heated steering wheel on. And then that.
Much later.
That. Let's turn that on. Good to go here. Oh man, sport mode. Hold on, dude. Whoa, that's a whole different car. That is fantastic. And then bam. All right, we're rolling. All the gadgets are engaged, but that's it. So we're gonna cruise through town here and get out of town where the speed picks up to 55 and get off in the middle of nowhere where we just start going straight uphill for a while. It's raining. That means we're gonna face more drag on the road. So really, this is a worst case scenario. And this is one of the things that nobody tells you when you first think about buying yourself an EV is, wow, you've got 300 miles of range. Oh, wait a minute, you want to be warm? Well, that's a problem. That's going to cut into your range. You want to be cool? That's a problem. That's going to cut into your range. It's raining outside? That's a problem. That's going to cut into your range. And you can't even control the weather, right? So we're going to pass this gas sign here. Non-member pricing, $5.35 a gallon for regular gasoline at a Chevron I just drove past here in Oregon. All right, it's a pretty good time for me to jump in here because I managed to delete all the microphone audio. But since I just mentioned gas prices, it's the worst it's been in quite a while. So that's where picking up a cheap EV beater with a heater starts to look pretty attractive. Because with just a little simple math, we can break this down pretty easy to where it looks like this car could pay for itself pretty easy in just a couple of years. So we used Gen 2 Volt in this area with a higher mileage. You're looking at anywhere from 8 to 12 grand right now. You could go a little more, not really any less, unless you're gonna deal with somebody else's problem. So for nice simple math, we're gonna say $10,000. That would be what I would expect to pay for my car today. Now, for example, let's look at my GMC Sierra that I just got rid of a couple of videos ago. That thing used to get about 25 miles to the gallon running around here going back and forth to work. Diesel is even more expensive than gas is here at right around $6 a gallon right now. It's a little more, but again, for simple math, we're just going to use 6. So at a $10,000 cheap EV heater with the beater purchase price, at $6 a gallon, that's only 1,667 gallons of diesel needed to be purchased. So if we get 25 miles per the gallon, that means at 41,667 miles, like that would be our break-even point. So I realize that these older EVs seem a little questionable, like an older Volt at this point in time, you know, older Leaf. But do I think that you could probably get one at a reasonable price and get 40,000 miles out of it to essentially pay for itself? Probably. And anything beyond that, that's just gravy. So you're keeping all these miles off your good rig, and you know, at a certain point in time, it'll have paid for itself just in the fuel savings. Now that's just one example. You know, if you want to look at this GMC Envoy that I just got, I'm getting about 18 miles to the gallon cruising around town, which I don't think is out of the realm of possibility for a lot of people out there. Like 18, 20, you know, the worse mileage you get, the faster this stuff's going to pay for itself. So if we look at that Envoy, you know, our $10,000 purchase price, now we're paying $5 a gallon. It's a little cheaper than diesel, but I'm not getting as good a mileage at 18 cruising around town. But that's only 36,000 miles. If we can squeeze 36,000 miles out of our cheap ass Volt, you just paid for itself. And do I think my car is going to go another 36,000 miles? Absolutely. Probably. Absolutely. Maybe. Where the math starts to fall apart here is if you're already driving a vehicle that gets 30 miles to the gallon or better, you've got to then squeeze 60,000 miles out of that Volt to pay for itself. So, you know, depending on what you're driving and what kind of mileage you get now, we're looking at purely at fuel prices today and miles driven to essentially pay for this cheap EV beater with a heater. You're looking at anywhere from about 2.5 years up to 5 years of normal driving, whatever else you got, to pay for this thing. All right. Cool. Here's our usage so far, 55.5 mpge. We're approaching levels of like a normal economy car. That's how bad this is, but it's still like a normal economy car. We've traveled 15.1 miles and used 7.7 kilowatt hours of juice. Got 13 miles to go here. Let's go ahead and get out. Man, look at that. Whoa, I know, you're still on. You're still on. What a day. So this is it. Your cheap EV beater with a heater. Gen 2 Chevy Volt, 2016 to 2019. They're getting pretty affordable. They've got their little issues, but if you do a little research and pick the right one, you might be able to get a fair amount of miles out of this guy, right? And so here the beauty of it is, you saw before we left the house, 52, 55 miles of range, trying to like get somewhere. What a day. So anyway, let's go back in the car. It's cold. All right, back down the hill. Let's see how much juice we can get back. Probably not a ton. Listen to it whiz. All right, I'm back to talk about range since I mentioned it. You're gonna need to look at your daily commute. What kind of range do you need to get out of this thing to accomplish your goal? Now, I know that the Gen 1 Volt does exist, but with a range of 35 to 38 miles when new, that was never in the cards for me, because having come from a totaled ID4, I got used to not paying for gas at all, and I really liked it. So That's what ultimately led me to the Gen 2 Volt with an original EPA estimated range of 53 miles from the factory. The other thing that was on the table was the Nissan Leaf. Ideally, your sweet spot's going to be like a 2018. That's going to be an early Gen 2 with a 40 kilowatt pack with questionably about 150 miles of range. But at the time when I was shopping for my cheap EV beater with a heater, that was out of my price range. I couldn't find a good enough deal on one at the time to make me want to pull the trigger. And while a Gen 1 Leaf would work, specifically like a 16 or a 17 with a 30 kilowatt hour pack, that's going to get you roughly 107 miles of range. The early Gen 1 Leafs didn't get thermal management with the battery pack, and as such, they faced a lot quicker battery degradation. So be aware of that. Speaking of battery degradation, my Volt is a 2017 with 102,000 miles on it. It was sold December of 2016 as a 17 model year. So here in just a few months, the thing's going to be turning 10 years old as far as when it rolled out of that lot. But numbers-wise, with the usage I frequently see, it really only looks like this car's got somewhere between 4 and 7% battery degradation after 100,000 miles and almost 10 years of usage. I don't think I'm going to have a problem anytime soon, unless we get some random individual cells that really throw a wrench into the works. I think the battery's going to be okay for quite a while. Now, I'm not advocating for anyone to go out and get themselves into a bunch of debt. We're looking for cheap and hopefully reliable. Remember, this cheap EV beater with a heater business is kind of a gamble, so pick a good one. That said, many of the Volts still have powertrain warranty, and a lot of them, depending on the state you live in and where the car was sold, still have special emissions warranty coverage for 15 years or up to 150,000 miles. That means things like the EGR valve, which is a common problem, EGR cooler, it happens. That stuff's still going to be covered for a long ass time. And I think probably the most likely thing to happen on my car at this point in time is probably that the EGR valve is going to go bad. But I've got a spare in my bedroom. And if it's still under warranty, because it's still under warranty until 2031 for the emissions stuff, if it goes out under warranty, I'll let GM foot the bill. If not, I've still got one in my bedroom. And so really, I'm not an expert on the Volt. I happen to have one. I did some research and searched for a year, looked at several different ones before I bought this one. But when you're going to go look at one of these, I would recommend trying to take the VIN number to your local dealership and ask them if they can give you a printout of all of the warranty work that has been done on that particular car. And what you're looking for, the most important thing, being the BEC, the Battery Electronic Control Module. You're really looking for a car that's had that replaced, because you don't want to get one and then need to replace it. The other thing that you might be looking for are EGR, the EGR valve and or EGR cooler. You're looking for any of those to have been replaced. And those are like the big three things. The shift to park is a thing that you'll hear and it'll come up. This car will occasionally tell me shift to park. We're 4 months away from 3 years of ownership with this car. And it's done the shift to park problem ever since I got it. I tried talking to the dealer about it once, and they couldn't do anything about it because they couldn't replicate it. It happens pretty infrequently, maybe 2 or 3 times a month. I carry the shift to park parts in my center console because I'll be damned if I'm going to get stranded somewhere because of a shifter. The parts are cheap. You can get them on eBay or at the dealer, If you get one of these, just buy the parts, throw them in your center console. With a couple of small tools, you can get this fixed in not a huge amount of time. Or the other option, just buy another whole shifter and keep it on the shelf in your garage. And when you're finally just at your wit's end with shift to park, swap the shifter out. No big deal. Because I said we were going to kill the battery and just see how many few miles I could get. But so far it hasn't been too great of a test, has it? Which leads us to, we're going to go this way now, the other direction. More hills, but there's more more cars, more public. So the beauty of the Volt, unlike EVs, is the Volt still has an engine. And when the shit hits the fan, that engine's going to turn on. And it's going to keep you going. Which pretty soon here, it's going to kick on. But you'll get to experience the wonder and majesty that is 1.5 liters of fury hooked to basically a generator. 5 miles of EV range, it says. 1 mile. It's almost gone. Oh, that's almost the end of our juice. Trying to just make it. There goes. The engine has kicked in and is warming up as we speak. And the engine does this little warm up thing, like it'll kick on and run like at low speed for a few seconds, maybe a minute, maybe two, and then it ramps up the RPM. So right now it's just idling. And I'll let you know as soon as it does something here. Maybe when we go up this next hill. Alright, you can see the engine gauge, I guess. Engine speed gauge on the right. And it'll go up and down as our speed changes. The battery on the left, when it goes down into the green, that means we're regenerating either from the engine or the brakes. See, you can use both. You can use one, charge the other. It's a pretty ingenious drivetrain, really, plagued by problems that really aren't of any fault of its own, which is a shame. So I drove down to the post office here on the way to go to the store. And you can hear that it's running now, right? This is what it sounds like. So anyway, this is mountain mode. It'll actually charge the battery up to a couple bars. So it's not on like dead, but it's to theoretically help with like going up the mountains and stuff. So if you're ever out and about with a dead ass battery and you want to just throw it in mountain mode and drive to one end of town, and then on the way back it'll be charged enough to just drive back and you'll get back with some juice instead of dead nothing, throw it in mountain mode. Well, I forgot to record this yesterday, so we're here on my phone. Let's look at our score. Here we go. So anyway, our score for the drive yesterday was a negative 2.2. This thing will give you a score based on the things you see here. The highest score I've ever gotten is a positive 4.5. And so yesterday, after that brutal drive, we ended up going 40.7 miles with 12.4 kilowatt hours used. And just a little bit of gas on the way home. We killed the battery on the way back up the hill to the house. And this is kind of what we ended up with here for a grand total of 73.4 mpg, which still beats our lifetime. I'll get to that 60. You just wait. Let's see. This and that. This has erased itself already. It had the driving, the climate, other. Now it's gone because it's charging, I guess. But thankfully, I remembered, and I was going through the footage and I didn't see this. So because the car hasn't fully charged yet, these numbers haven't reset. So it'll be done charging here in about an hour, just because that's what I had it set to be done at 10 a.m. But anyway, here's our numbers. That way we can see what they were. And this is, again, that was a worst case scenario, like sport mode, in the rain, up some hill. We regained some range going back down the hill, and then went the other direction, up some more hills, down some more hills, and then back up hills on the way home. So this is pretty brutal. But generally, this the 12.4, usually I'll see anywhere from about 13.2 to 13.6. And some of that kind of depends on how much climate control you're using. And we had the heat on yesterday, running pretty hard, and running all the accessories that I could to try and make this as brutal as possible. I don't normally see runs in the 12s, but here we are. I just want to thank you for watching this week's video. I hope you had a fun time, and if you didn't see me out there, you better rewind it and watch again 3 times. I even left you a little surprise. Like, subscribe, share with your buddies. Hey, Bob. Hey, Bob.